How comes you're in London?
Uh, my girlfriend, who's actually a founder as well, lives in London. So if you all ever move back here, you guys should meet because I'm sure founders together should, just connect and be be good resources for each other.
Of course. Is she I mean, we could take this offline after the call, but actually there's a network I've recently come a part of called ICE in the UK. That's kind of a founder for sort of a founder network for early stage companies, early stage founders rather. It's become so valuable as a resource for me. So yeah, I'll be back. I'll be back in about 6 weeks. And yeah, it's always great to meet fellow founders, especially in the UK. We're a small community, but an active one. Whereabouts are
Yeah,
you in London?
I am in Holborn right now in a WeWork out here.
Oh,
I don't know if you've ever been in this WeWork. She has actually has an office in here, so I've just been working from this like atrium area that they have.
yeah. I've been to that exact WeWork several times because my last startup, we were a WeWork too. We were the one by Liverpool Street, sort of more Shoreditch way, but we had a partnership with WeWork where we did a lot of activations in those buildings. So yeah, I guess weirdly enough, I know the UK WeWork estate pretty well, which is surprising that someone's never worked in real estate or prop tech or anything like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Ken, how do you want to roll with this, by the way? Like, what's your preferred style? Do you want me to run through the deck? Do you want to keep it more conversational? Whatever's
On,
best for you.
Honestly, I'm more a visual learner, so the deck would be helpful. And then if it works, I'm just gonna pepper in some questions depending on like what you say. And as we go through the slides, I'm sure some slides are easier to explain than others. So the ones that are like it's a big market, we can like just surpass it and go ahead and do something else.
Because every pitch deck always says it's a big market in there.
Yeah,
Otherwise, we wouldn't be VC right now. Okay, totally
yeah.
fair enough. Just before I get going, then, do you mind kind of sharing a little bit in terms of Red Sea, in terms of your current thesis? I mean, I've obviously looked on Crunchbase. I can see there's some relevant portcos that could be of interest, kind of to explore. But just generally, kind of thesis, check sizing, whether you guys lead, the kind of general mechanics for Red Sea Ventures.
Yeah, definitely. So, as you can probably see, we're pre-seed and seed investors based in New York. Check size is generally between 500K to 1.5 million, and we lead, co-lead, co-invest. We're pretty flexible with our mandate, and really what we invest in is next gen experience for the consumer and the worker, and that's pretty broad on purpose. We're relatively generalist investors with more focus on the consumer experience, as I mentioned. Um, I think what you guys are building very much falls under that
Yeah.
in terms of the next gen part and the XR part. Uh, we we have like a pretty broad thesis there, but we've invested in a couple metaverse companies before, some like digital wearables companies as well. So we're pretty well versed in the space and have a lot of great advisors to help us in terms of our diligence there. Um, as I guess in terms of how we help our startups, it really boils down to a couple things. It's fundraising, first and
Mhm.
foremost, but more importantly, on the go to market, and as well as the strategy side and the biz dev side, you can see us as like a hand in hand partner. We like to get our hands a bit dirty, and we like to like make sure. Obviously, our portfolio companies are successful, but introduce them to the right customers whenever it makes sense. We have high quality like, PR contacts, and we also help with hiring from like an executive and advisory perspective as well.
Amazing.
So we very much utilize our network to and our LP base to help our founders. Happy to either answer any questions you may have, but would obviously love to spend bulk of time with you.
Yeah, no, that's all super clear. And to be honest, from we sort of have like 7 or 8 VCs currently on our cap table, and those who are a little bit more active, we actually yearn for. I think the days where people just wanted cash and cash is fungible a little bit. We're kind of beyond that, and actually getting that added value from some of our VC partners and nothing but tremendous. So yeah, look, I guess on my side, I could do a little quick introduction about myself, a little bit of the story of Volta to date, and then exactly
Mhm.
switch into the deck just to give you a little bit of context. But from my side, a bit of a varied background, was a racing driver, racing Formula 3 when I was a kid. That
Oh wow.
dream went when 2008 happened, the financial sponsor and financial markets obviously dried up, which meant my sponsorship dried up. So I went from body as my temple as the Formula 3 driver to building an event management business, which I actually managed to build at 16, sell at 20, and exited to quintessentially. So it was quite nice to have an exit that then funded university. I then went on to be a investment banker for all my sins at Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Barclays, but
Nice.
specifically in the solutions group. So we were kind of, if the equity guys or debt guys or M&A guys couldn't achieve something with one of their kind of remits, we were the kind of cross-asset, multi-asset kind of financing team that used derivatives, and we were kind of actually between the Chinese wall. We could kind of go between IB side and market side. So all these kind of experiences were then very relevant for when I went into being a founder operator. And in that sort of time, my last startup, very, very different sort of field, but I mention it because it's actually how Alex, my co-founder, and I got acquainted. So I left sort of IB world in 2015, went on to co-found my first tech startup, which was trying to be the Google pay-per-click of the offline space. But it was in that period, we went through 5 rounds of funding, scaled up to 300K MAU. It was going very, very well. And Alex, my co-founder, serendipitously moved into my apartment in Shoreditch. I was a cliche ex-investment banker living in the cool side of London in Shoreditch, where my living room was more musical hardware than it was living space. And Alex was a musician moving from the States. We kind of resonated straight away. So yeah, his thesis project at uni at Imperial, he's a double masters at Imperial, was in innovation. And Volta was born out of his thesis project. So at that time, I was scaling my last startup. He was building kind of the early working prototype of Volta, and we were naturally kind of spitballing ideas. So, as that journey went on, I went from kind of being an informal advisor to a formal advisor. Then COVID happened, and my last startup, a business which was facing high street as one side of the marketplace and then consumers on the other side, it was a pretty difficult time when consumers were told to stay at home and the high street was closed. So we weren't really affording any available pivots. And in that space, picked up a few advisory roles, helped Olio close their Series B, blah, 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 and kind of led about 15 rounds, but transitioned from my last startup, which was very clear it couldn't be saved. And I guess when we have a little bit more time together, we'd love to kind of talk you through that whole process. And yeah, transition to Volta. And for me personally, I have a massive passion for music. It's been kind of my biggest passion since I was a kid, and be a pianist and a DJ and all that. Everyone at the company is musicians in their own right. Our CTO is a drummer. Our CPO is a full-time is a DJ. Our CEO rather is he's a singer. He's actually drummed with the Fijis. And Lauren Hill. So yes, that's the kind of genetic makeup, and really, why Volta started. Alex was toying with it was a very different incarnation as a thesis project, but when COVID happened, as we all know, and kind of the aftermath 3 years later, in terms of the music space specifically, it was the second hardest hit sector globally, second to retail. And the reason being is musicians typically make 80% of their income from live events. So with live events stopping, the market needed another answer. Musicians need another answer to what's going behind there. And as we saw, the world's biggest names, dare I say it, Travis Scott and Lil Nas X and all these kind of guys went off to do these big virtual reality or mixed reality performances, right? And the real kind of point there is that touring managers looked at, say, Travis's stream and went, well, holy crap, if I can get 54 million views on one stream, we're missing a trick here. That's like me selling out Madison Square Garden or Wembley Stadium 400 times over. Now, it's not apples to oranges, but the point is there. So naturally, the rest of the sector tried to follow suit and tried to do these kind of experiences, these digital first experiences, only to realize that if you weren't spending a couple $1 million at a top grade production studio and thinking of these things like a motion picture, a 2-hour feature length performance, you're going to get burnt in the water. And that's exactly what happened. People wasted loads of money and loads of time trying to replicate these events. And if it wasn't done to a Hollywood style specification, users churned, zero interest. And we're kind of seeing the same thing even happening now with the Wave, which is high production value, trying to get users involved in a digital first environment, and it just isn't captivating users. So that's kind of the story as to kind of how Volta was born. And we aim to basically help the long tail of streamers at the time compete with the bigger names, to try and create content that was interesting, to try and monetize those fans and make passive income streams and secondary revenue streams. So a little bit of context there. I will flip to the deck. And, here's really kind of a little bit more on the trend. So, on the fan side, we've seen this kind of move from musical virtuosity, which in other words, you'd go to watch an orchestra perform just purely because of the quality of the music you were hearing and the specificity of it, to the expression era, the Beatles and these kind of names, all the way through to now the spectacle. Fans looking at Tomorrowland and Coachella and some of the stuff like Outside Lands that I know you've invested in, Fly Machine. There artists, right? And the side, with the advent of Floyd, was even using kind of polarized mirrors and condoms and all sorts of weird material to create new, essentially mixing media to create new spectacles, all the way through to now on the Prid side of things, we have HoloLens with these huge 3D, astronauts and hands that are going over the performances. And it's resonating. And, this trend where artists has been mixing media in order to try and stand out has just been getting faster and faster. Here we are now, today's era. We had, all these big mixed reality performances, but critically, EDC is now enabled with Snap's AR lens. That trend within Insomniac's portfolio is only increasing. But the problem is, whilst artists are trying to stand out and mixing media, because this has been happening for decades, it's just going from physical media now to physical and digital media, and two are overlapping, really mixed reality. That's been further compounded with the idea that artists are trying to do this, but at the same time, it's really, really hard for them to stand out in the first place. It's super competitive as a market for artists and musicians, because anyone can be a musician. Anyone can download free software like, Trials of Logic and Ableton on the production side, or even Volta on the visual side, which means there's 100,000 tracks on Spotify uploaded every day, which 95% of those get 0 streams entirely. There's limited time. They're businesses, they have to market themselves, things to distributors, agents, booking fees, the whole works. And it's low barrier entry. Again, it's really easy to be an artist. And all this coupled together means that fans want a spectacle. Artists want to make the spectacle in order to try and stand out. But to do so, they're kind of at limit, they have limited time and limited means to be able to actually make this happen. And so much so that one of the points, the catalyst for Volta getting going and the problem set was, about 3 years ago or 2 years ago, we surveyed about 3,000 artists, completely blind, unbiased, not through a Volta account, and asked them, what is the biggest thing you wish you could learn in order to try and stand out? And we asked them 5 things between production, vocals, DJing, there was one other category, and visuals. And surprisingly to us, visuals ranked as #1 by a country mile. They appreciated it was a way in which they could tell their story, hone in on their brand, and actually connect with their fans at a deeper level. But they also singled it out as the hardest thing to do, that it was, information overload, that it was very expensive for them to try and do it themselves. And this is what we see here. So, people want to do it, they're trying to do it, but they're prohibited from doing it. It's super expensive. The median salary for musicians is $15,000 a year. It's why they all have to side hustle. But, these kind of experiences in a production studio cost them $200,000. It's a complete mismatch in terms of the ROI they could expect to achieve from cost load. Lead times, a 2-3 minute clip takes them 2 to 4 weeks at a production studio, or 3 to 12 months for something a bit more experiential. And there's high barriers. The learning curve is massive. They really have to take on a lot. They have to potentially get familiar with game engines, motion capture suits, and the list goes on. It's just too much for the long tail. And that's really where we kind of stepped in. So Volta is a free tool. It lets anyone build interactive mixed reality performances in a minute. We have a drag and drop editor. And essentially, we allow those artists to monetize fans through the form of interaction. And actually, rather than going through these kind of separate kind of blocks, if it's okay with you, I could just show you the tool. And it's probably easier to actually show you Volta than trying to talk about it. As a visual tool after all.
That'd be very helpful. And I completely understand the vision here. I think I'm a person that goes to a lot of concerts. Like I probably go to like 1 or 2 a month. And I think the best performance that I don't know if you've seen Odessa or like Madeon. And like the visuals behind them are like absolutely incredible and enhance the experience more than many other the artists that I've seen. And then I don't know if you've been to Brooklyn Mirage in
We power Brooklyn Mirage. That's a venue of ours.
Really?
Yeah. So that hungry screen, they have our problem set to it. Power again, making content to power that hungry screen, costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars in a production studio. They use Volta and it's free.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear, because I was supposed to go this week for a DJ called Elderbrook. But I'm in London right now, so I had to like fill my ticket. But I completely get your mission here. I know it enhances the experience for like the end consumer, which is like the concert goer or whatever, like tenfold if you're able to like really showcase a story visually versus just through music.
Exactly. And look, and you nailed it on the head there. You know, for us, we don't have a distribution endpoint, and I think that's one thing to say here, which is, you know, we're the middle, we're the platform, we're the tooling, and if the artist wants to use Volta to showcase it on, you know, the screens of the Brooklyn Mirage, Printworks in London, which we've done by the way,
Yeah.
you know, they'll just plug in the laptop with an HDMI cable, off it goes to the screen. If they want to stream it, we've got streaming built natively into Volta. If they want to send it to a VR platform or a metaverse platform, they can do all of it. And actually, we tell our artists, you know, encourage artists, venues, event organizers, well, if you're going to use it in venue and on the screens in venue, well, why not stream it to as many channels as you can do, you know, and magnify your reach? Because with Volta, it's no extra effort. There's no cost of doing so. We've built sort of patented bandwidth, transmission protocols. That means, you know, we've actually had it once. And actually, this is happening right now, by the way. We're doing Richie Hawtin's tour around the US. It's a different city every night, and he's streaming it out from in venue to like, I think 8 different channels simultaneously. His Twitch, his YouTube, there's some, I think, to Decentraland, a few other different places. Like, it just means we circumvent the whole license thing. Anyway, I'm talking too much. Let me just show you the tool, because there's one thing talking about it and another thing just sharing it. So yes, here we go. So the first thing that kind of happens when you land on Volta is there's a bunch of these templates. And, you know, these are just points of inspiration. You can kind of think of like the Squarespace model here, which is, you know, templates for users to play around with, get familiar, and then can kind of tinker from there. So, you know, just to show you a really quick example, but what I'm going to really do is I'm going to build something from scratch, just because I'll show you kind of more around the functionality there. But this is an example of how a world could look like. But nevertheless, let me start from a blank canvas, because this is really how the majority of artists use us. So empty world. By the way, it's worth mentioning, we've got a new version of Volta coming out in 2 weeks. It's a complete redesign from the ground up. It actually looks like a controller, like a musical instrument. This was built by devs, and we brought in our UX and product designers about 1.5 years ago. So yeah, it's a whole brand new version coming out. Anyway, on my left-hand side, I can add elements. And these are essentially just existing 3D assets that's in Volta's library. So I'm going to pick a few random elements just to show you function. I am the COO, so I'm not the creative. So I'm going to show you function over form. And what I'll do is I'll take this little cell. I'm going to take some, where are my pulse rings? Sorry, my internet's a little bit on the strange side because I'm in Brazil. Take these pulse rings. I'll take a billboard, a sky rather, and a billboard. So just 4 things. And let me just collapse the UI at the top just for now. I'll move you down so I can see you properly. Cool. So I've just dragged in a load of stuff. It looks like a bit of mess right now. But let me just grab my billboard, for example, and I'm just going to move my billboard up. I'll take my little cell and move that up a little bit. Great. So things are a bit static right now, a little bit boring. But what I'm first going to do is, let's say I take these pulse rings, these blue circles. Now, what I can do is make these audio reactive really quickly. So let's say the number of rings. I could slide that manually and choose how many rings I want. Or I could just simply click the link icon, click audio, lows, and now it's going to use the lows of my microphone, essentially just built into my laptop to control the number of rings in real time. I could have said that is any sort of audio source. If I plug in my mixer from my, from my decks, it can use that as an audio source. I could have a microphone, like if I was a rapper, and use that as an audio source. Really, I have the choice of really what I want to do there. But that's not, and by the way, if things are coming through a little bit like tetchy or scatty, it's just because Zoom throttles the frame rate that we can do video sharing over. But it's a full 60 second from Volta's side. But yeah, so that's how I can link it. And I can link anything within Volta to any form of audio activity. But equally, I could say, do you know what? I'm a DJ, and this is how I use Volta. I'm a DJ, so you'll hear bias from me about a DJ. But actually, 60% of our audience is producers and like live performers and live producers. But let's say like the segments of ring. So the ring, I could go from circles to triangles. Really basic sort of thing to do. I could say, do you know what? Every time I use my DJM 900 mixer and I say change the highs of channel 1, it's going to go from triangles to circles procedurally. I don't have to think about it. And that's really the point behind Volta. We don't want artists thinking through what they're doing when they're performing live. They're already focused on their music. It's a little bit of pre-prod, and Volta just spits out procedurally all this sort of content that fits their narrative. So now, I've shown you basic audio activity, showing you how I can link it to any form of MIDI controller, whether it's DEX, whether it's a MIDI pad, a guitar, whatever on earth you want. And by the way, we have native integrations with all the Pioneer products. So for example, up here, click MIDI, pick whatever mixer I want. We've got native integrations with Ableton, with Tractor, with Serato, all the major DAWs and DJ softwares within the music space. But here's really where some of our secret sauce starts to happen, which is visual sources. And that's the ability for an artist to upload existing 2D media and wrap it around 3D objects. No one has 3D media really, unless you are a top of the range artist, right? Like, we, for example, Deadmau5 and Richie Hawtin, they're both investors and advisors to us. So is Post Malone. They have obviously a team of creatives that can upload their own 3D assets into Volta. But the majority, the long tail that we're surfacing, don't. So I could add in a folder of images, a folder of videos, like logos, after movies, Beeple VJ loops. I can even bring in things like NDI and Siphon if I'm an advanced user and want to bring in other video feeds or motion capture suite feeds or avatars from other platforms. Like Volta is a way you can just stitch together lots of feeds and have it run. And by the way, you don't need a jacked up MacBook to do it. This is I'm on a 2017 MacBook right now. Point it, bring it to the masses. But I'm just going to bring in some basic 2D media, my webcam. So here I am, top right, and I'm going to click on my billboard, and I can just add myself to the billboard. But I don't really want that horrible background of my hotel room, so I'm going to get rid of my background. Simple. And I can add in all sorts of crazy effects. But I'm going to take this one stage further. So now I've got myself in the world. Let me just add in a folder of videos. And these are just some Creative Commons Beeple VJ loops. Here's the purple thing that I downloaded for free in advance. So I like this. It fits my brand. I'm now going to go on these triangles and I'm going to make it unique to me. So now that video I showed you is not only being controlled, like the number of triangles controlled by my voice, but the video is being played back as a texture on those triangles. I could even go to my face again and say, do you know what? I want that same video to play as a mask, as a texture for my face. So blend, just going to take that thingy. And now, what's happened here? Oh, sorry, I've been a fool. I blend on that, input, folder videos. And now, for example, even my face is being masked as a texture like that. I'm not going to show you every element and every bit of functionality. It's a creative tool, so you can imagine the permutations and the ways you can take this are pretty out there. We have these global effects, for example, is another thing we can do. Glitch, for example, is really popular with DJs. So track goes crazy, it all builds, drops, fireworks go off you go. And again, this could be mapped to a DJ's volume slider on their mixer. So as they're going up with volume or gain or reverb, it's all going crazy and then it stops. Again, they don't have to think about it. But if I shift to perform, we have all these onboard different cameras. You can record it natively as an MP4, upload it as social media content, to promo a track or your next gig or some house party you're doing. You can stream it natively, like I said, to any platform of your choice. Wherever your fans already are, we encourage you to stream it to where your fans already are, and then share output. If you're in venue and you want to share it to the huge wall at the Brooklyn Mirage or the Printworks wall or whatever you want to do, or even a projector at your own house party in your home, you can do it that way. And just show you one example of a camera. Here's like a dolly cam, which is really popular for like these kind of multi-world experiences, because you just get this constant sense of motion throughout the world. And you can get really granular again and set all these things to be controlled by audio or MIDI or whatever you want. But the point here is that you can go as granular as you like, but with a couple of elements, you can get pretty high impact results. And, I know what you're thinking right now, which is, seems like there's a lot going on. And that's a big reason why Volta Play is being a bit stripped back. It's a bit more of a cleaner interface. But also when you're in a first time user, you go through a self-guided onboarding flow. And that will kind of show you the bare basics. Oh, that's a bug. I've just cancelled onboarding and it's got me locked. Nevertheless, I think you've got the idea. I'm going to report that to the team. That's a strange one. Okay.
Awesome. That's great. No, that completely makes sense in terms of the product. So I guess like you raised a bit earlier last year or like the year before. What has been, like the life cycle of the company in that time frame? Like, what have you done? What is this like fundraise for? Can you give me just like a bit of context on what has happened in the last like year or two since you last raised?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, we went through Techstars in 2021. And then as we came out of Techstars, we started, planning for our seed round, and essentially closed that. It was formally announced on March 2022, but we actually closed it November 21. The reason there was sort of 4 months delay was we had our lead Boost Capital had to change their lawyers throughout the docs process, which delayed things. So yeah, closed in November 2021. And that was led by Boost Capital, by Supernode. Techstars followed on. We had Forez, 7% Ventures, to Secret Capital as VCs, and a couple other names joined the round. And some angel investors included CEO of Beatport, like I said, Electric Feel, which is Post Malone's after service company. They invested as a VC. Post Malone also invested as an angel, as well as Pixel which is Richie Horton and Deadmau5, but Richie Horton has come on as an angel as well. And a load of other kind of very, very helpful strategics and angels that was kind of joined. That was a 4 mil raise in the end. It was 3 mil priced with a mil in safe straight after. That we'd already kind of had a construct that we'd already agreed in advance. And then since...
What were the terms on that?
That was 13 mil post money priced.
Got it.
Yes, exactly. So that's 13 mil post money priced. 20% dilution. That was on the 3 sort of mil raise. And then ultimately, since the raise, I guess the key highlights, we partnered with Microsoft, for example. So now whenever you go into the flagship store in London, the Oxford Circus branch, or New York by MoMA, and it's actually planning to be rolled out across all the Microsoft shops. If you go in the store, there is a DJ booth with decks with a big LED wall behind it, and that's being powered by Volta. So we've got consumers coming off the streets, playing with Volta, downloading Volta, which is quite nice because we want to get to being more mass market. We understand we're with artists now, we're long tail, we're prosumery, but we're moving in this vein where we want any kid with a smartphone to make mixed reality experiences. So that was very interesting. We won a $500,000 grant by the UK government, non-dilutive financing, and that was specifically to power the next iteration of Volta. So I showed you very much around the creator tool, the tool of how to make these experiences and how to have your worlds, and it plays whatever on the screens in Brooklyn Mirage or on a YouTube or Twitch chat or whatever. But that was always stage one for us, which is helping them make creative for free. Stage two is how do we help artists monetize fans, and that's what we call audience interaction. And so now what we've actually done this at the Brooklyn Mirage now 4 or 5 times, where people in venue just go on a web app. There's 10 defined web app widgets, and fans will click on a widget and something will happen. So if you click Brooklyn, this huge pulse ring will spit out and go around you around the Brooklyn Barrage. And if you click Volta, the Volta logo appears in 3D. Now, these are all a little bit gimmicky, and we just use these for experiments. But the reason the UK government gave us a 500K grant was they love what we're up to. It's supporting the creator economy. And ultimately, it now means just how I showed you how I could link the number of pulse rings to my voice. You can now link anything in Volta to any keyword in chat, any web app widget, whatever you want. So crucially, fans now in venue or watching on stream, it's all decided by the artist. So the artist will say, okay, I want these things to be interactive. And they could say charge $1,000 if they want to change it from the sci-fi world to some Lee Burridge, All Day I Dream, melodic kind of palm tree scene. And that's now the kind of next iteration. So that's being launched in the next 2 weeks. Partner with Unity, partner with Beatport, partner with Pioneer, huge roster of really successful partnerships that are proving to be very effective for us. In terms of outright artist acquisition, we're about 4,500 artists. So kind of B2B, our model is B2B2C. We acquire the artist, monetize the fan. We actually grew by 3x alone in the last 3.5 months. funny enough, Fly Machine is obviously in your portfolio. We're partnering with Outside Lands, and we're rolling out our audience interaction features at Outside Lands this year. So we met Rick Farman actually
Well,
on the
I'm going outside lands this year, so I'll be able to
Nice, sweet. Okay, amazing. So yeah, we're going to be a part of that. And a huge other roster. We did Glastonbury Festival, the biggest festival in the world. We're doing Richie Hawtin's tour. There's been, a lot of success there. And, to kind of go into the now, which is, so we had Andres and Horowitz approach us off cycle a couple of months ago, about October or November last year, saying, from the Scout Fund, being honest, that they've been tracking us. They really loved our progress. We wanted to get in potentially before the Series A. Could we make space for them? So on the back of A16Z coming in, and we made space for them on a safe round, we then also looked at our own strategy behind RA and whether we're going to do the extension. And, this actually isn't really a market force play. We're quite, our metrics have been pretty solid. The growth's been amazing. The product's coming on leaps and bounds, and the partnerships speaking their weight speaking their weight. But what we appreciate is we're still pre-rev. We have monetized a few of these events now. We have monetized a few things, but for all intents and purposes, in terms of A metrics, we're pre-rev. So for us, we're launching our monetization stream in the next couple of weeks. We want obviously 6 months to track record on that primary monetization stream before we go to our A. We currently have runway till December 2023. So our thinking was to raise an extension round on the back of A16Z coming in, on the back of the 3x in MAU growth or MAA growth in the last 3 months, essentially just to buy us more time. We'd probably still do an early A anyway, and probably do an A around Q4 of this year, Q3 to Q4. But it really was around that. And then the mechanics of the extension round, we're doing it as either a 20 mil cap or a 20% discount. We're looking to raise up to $1.5 million, probably as an absolute cap at 2 million. And we've already raised about 800K of that. That's come just from our 2 main VCs. We have just started the outbound work. We haven't even finalized speaking to our existing investors. So we think there's a fair bit of it we can do is predominantly inside round. I think we can fill 75% of the round is inside only. And then really exactly, we're looking to fill probably another 500, just 500 to 700 probably externally.
Got it. That's super helpful. And what specific metrics are you looking for to get to that Series A? Is it more from like an actual revenue perspective, because like the average Series A is probably going for at least like $1 million in ARR, or are you trying to get more from like a traction perspective because this is like more like a prosumer type product to get like more consumers and DJs onto the platform? Yeah,
great question. I mean, look, the way we kind of thought about this, and so one of our other angels and advisors is Dave Wu from Aviron. So he led the Waves A and B round, and kind of obviously knows kind of from the Waves perspective what's gone well and not so well. And we actually are friends with Adam from the Wave, because we always go, you guys do the very top 0.01% of artists, you guys handle the Biebers and whatever the world. We'll be the ones to take everything else, the huge swathe of the market that actually represents a huge opportunity. So for us, at least the way Dave Wu and how we've been sort of thinking about it is, we believe that if we have 5,000 artists, of which that they maintain the ratio of 5,000 to 1, in terms of each artist we've seen on average has 5,000 fans. And through a model, if we're seeing that those 5,000 artists are generating healthy revenues, and I have a model we can share, of course, to get into weeds or what I describe as healthy, that's kind of our trigger. It's either around 10,000 artists using the app with 30% month-to-month growth from now on to the A round, with a little bit of monetization, because we can lean on a lot of comparables with Fortnite and these other examples of micropayment models. But what we're really gearing up for and what we want to be doing is actually having a smaller quantum of artists that are more engaged. And that's around the kind of 3,000 to 5,000 engaged artists who are monetizing their fans effectively and efficiently.
Got it. Awesome. I know we're coming up on time here, but I guess as like a follow-up, if you can send over the deck, just so I can like cut my teeth into this a little bit more, that'd be great. As well as some financial model if you have it. And then if you can like send me videos of what other people have made using Volta, like more of like a product that's ready to distribute at a concert or something else, I think that would give me a lot better of an understanding of like the capabilities of like the platform instead.
It always does, yeah. I mean, I'd love to show you what we did at AD, for example, with Sasha, and like actually what Richie Horton's doing tonight. I think he's playing in Phoenix tonight, and that is going to be streamed, by the way. If you do want to check it out, that's got audience interactions rolling on it. It's hard techno, you know, it's 145 BPM stuff, but it is the godfather of techno itself. Yeah, I like that. So yeah, I appreciate that. I always, you know, always end up sending kind of actual kind of finalized creatives and assets after it, because like I said, I could show you function, not form, as the boring COO. Yeah, let me send you some examples of some performances we're really proud of.
Awesome, that's great. So with that being said, if you could send over those few things, that'd be great. And then we can take it from there. I would love to just like do a bit more diligence myself, obviously on the market, but more importantly, like see what the product's all about outside of like the product demo that you showed me.
Absolutely. And you know, what does sort of next steps look like for you guys then? Obviously appreciate, you know, you need to appraise, you know, run your diligence phase. I know obviously the market's, you know, tricky post SUV and all that kind of analysis. So, you know, roughly kind of how does your process work from here?
Yeah. I mean, SVB, like we didn't lose any money, if that's what you're asking.
Nice.
and we set up a bunch of new bank accounts, so we're good there. I guess our process generally it takes between like 2 to 3 weeks. It's us talking to obviously our own advisors, but more importantly, like doing the typical diligence, like understanding the market, having a couple more conversations, understanding your go-to-market, understanding what your plans are, the team, meeting the team, doing some customer references. You'll meet my partner after we do a couple more calls, and then we'll do some like customer research. Hopefully, we can like talk to some of the artists that are using your platform right now and see why they love it. And then we can go from there.
I love that process. No, and exactly. I'm always surprised that more funds don't actually want to speak to our own customers and just kind of getting that intel there. For me, it's always something that I would kind of always want to do, like talk to the users. It just seems like an obvious one, but I always love to hear that process. It always fills me with confidence that, you know, it's more of a founder-friendly fund in that respect. If you know what I mean. Actually, there is that support that you offered kind of at the beginning.
Awesome. Yeah, we pride ourselves to be pretty consumer experience oriented. So we definitely need to talk to people using the product.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that funds don't. But awesome. If you could send me those couple of things, that'd be great. And we'll go from there.
Perfect. Well, Ken, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, I will look to follow up later today with exactly the materials and the deck. If you don't mind, please give me just sort of a week on the model. I'm just updating it as we speak, the financial model.
That's fine.
Cost sides all done, just thinking of the rev, because as we're testing on, you know, A/B testing all those kind of assumptions right now, it's thinking out.
Perfect. Sounds good. Awesome. Well, it was great to meet you, Mitch. Let me know also when you're in like New York next, when I fly back in a couple of weeks, and we can grab coffee when we're there too.
Absolutely. I hope you have a lovely rest of your time in London, and exactly, we'd love to catch you in New York.
All right. Thanks, Mitch. Good meeting you. Take care.
You too. Bye.